Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Find Your Lady Tribe podcast. I'm Brenda Ridgely, your host, and I couldn't be more excited to continue our fabulous conversation on midlife reinvention, getting through that funk to become who you are meant to be here in this world. So I couldn't be more excited to share our guest today. Very interesting. You're going to be really excited to hear all that she has to share. Tahverlee Anglin. She is the heart and high priestess of the Moon Temple Mystery School, guiding seekers through the mystical landscapes of self-discovery, witchcraft, empowerment, and spiritual awakening. Rooted in ancient wisdom and aligned with the wild, she bridges the mundane and the magical, empowering others to embrace their full power and sovereignty. Tahverlee is redefining what it means to be a modern feminist icon, spiritual leader, and witch. As an accomplished speaker, social impact entrepreneur, host of a top-rated podcast, and business expert, Tahverlee merges the mystical and the practical, showing that magic belongs not only in sacred circles, but also in the everyday world. Through her books, courses, and events, she shares the wisdom and transformation tools that have shaped her path, encouraging others to ignite their spiritual growth, craft their realities, and live in power. Tahverlee's forthcoming book series, Sacred Magic and Becoming Dangerous, as well as Secret Magic, a Witch's Oracle Deck, will inspire readers to walk the path of awakening and sovereignty. Tahverlee, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I kind of just hyper focused on something you said in my introduction that it's just resonating. And I'd like to say it again, that I believe that magic doesn't need to only exist in ceremonies, right? That magic is a way of life, and how we define magic can be different. But when we sit with the idea that having magic in our life, daily life, is possible, it hits something, I think it hits a lot of people right now.
Absolutely. And don't we all need a little more magic?
Mm-hmm.
Welcome to the Find Your Lady Tribe podcast. I'm your host, Brenda Ridgely. This is season 4, and we are deep diving into the heart of midlife reinvention. If you've been feeling that midlife funk, that sense that you've mastered your roles but you've lost your spark, you are exactly where you need to be. This season is inspired by the framework of my upcoming book, Ignite Your Life's Purpose and Save the World. We're going to help you move from autopilot to on fire by hearing from incredible women who have reclaimed their own life force. It's time to stop just going through the motions and start living your next chapter with intention. Let's ignite that spark. Save the world, sister. So Tahverlee, I am so intrigued by what you teach and what you are about. I've been diving in to your good stuff on YouTube and everywhere, and definitely going to pick up that new Oracle deck when it's available. It's just so interesting to me, and a little like I don't know how to feel about it. I love it. I love the idea and the intrigue about it, but I don't really know. So I'm excited to hear your story of how you got here, and
Yeah.
was there a midlife transformation in there, or are you going through it, or what, how did you get here, and how did you get to do all these cool things that you're working on today? So just start from the beginning, if you would.
Yeah, I was going to say it's such a big question. And honestly, I think the thing that makes most people uncomfortable when they're intrigued by the concept, the spiritual concept that I talk about, or witchcraft itself, it's usually the word witch, right? Everything feels good except for that one word. You say that word and people are like, oh, wait, what does that mean? And I get asked a lot of questions about that word, and we can circle back to that if you desire to go there.
Yeah.
But for me, when I think of how did I get here, and what does reinvention midlife look like for me? Well, I definitely feel like I'm the kind of person that reinvents myself a lot. We every time we experience a massive change, or even a rupture in our life, it takes us to lower places, right? Like it's the disintegration, it's the tower card in the tarot deck, that everything just burns down, right? And what you're left with is ash. And what you build from that ash becomes who you are down the road. And so when I look at myself now and I think back to how I got here, well, I had many series of what I call witch awakenings, which is a type of spiritual awakening. I call it a witch awakening because it led me back to remembering that I have the power to choose, right? A lot of spiritual awakenings are about surrendering to the universe and knowing that there's more, to this life than meets the eyes, than the rat race we all spend a big chunk of our time on. But a witch awakening is that, and it's me, right? Like I'm creating and responding and surrendering. And so everything that I'm choosing to do or not choosing to do is creating where I'm at today. And so when I think about that from my story, I've been through I've lived a crazy life. I've lived a crazy life, normal in the sense that I've had a lot of challenges. I've had 12 major surgeries and I have half of the organs I was born with. I was born with my legs wrapped around each other like pretzels. So I started my life, with bent legs that required full casts. And then of course I went to the opposite side of that by becoming like a professional athlete and played on an athletic scholarship. So I feel like for me, every time I was faced with something difficult, I went to the extreme side of resilience. And I think that each one of those experiences, whether it was, a loss of a job, or, I had a marriage that fell apart because I found my spouse in a car with my best friend, literally when I was just over 30, my babies were little. Nothing awakens you like something like that. And so every time I went through something difficult, I was faced with a question that I find I still ask today. And I think that this is what a lot of people in midlife start asking themselves, which is this all there is?
Yes.
Like, is this it? And when you ask that question, when your heart is hurting or your body is recovering, or, you're just going through change or trying to slog through raising kids and, keeping your job up, it's a different answer than when you hit around midlife. So for me, I'll share at this stage in my life, I ask the question of, am I first of all serving myself the best that I can, meaning taking care of my own health, my own spiritual practices, my centeredness, my connection to community, to the people that I love, to the lands that I live on. Am I servicing that part of me first, and am I servicing the world at large? Whereas 10 years ago, when I asked the question, is this all there is? The answer that I would have had is, oh gosh, no, I feel like I've only just touched the tip of the surface. I don't even know exactly what I want to do yet. What does that look like? What does it mean to run a mystery school? And I've got all these book ideas. I mean, all of that was swirling. And so it was like I had to pluck out one little answer at a time and go down, like follow it like a rabbit hole of answering the question, if this is all there is this all there is? One answer would come and I would go down it. And that's what I've been doing since I was young. And so to get here, I would say that I've just willingly asked that question, even when things were hard. And it led me to places. And along the way, I learned how to trust my intuition. I've always been a very intuitive person without having the language to know what that means. I could tell you now that I am a seer. I am, clairvoyant naturally, but not knowing it until I was probably 40. Like I didn't understand that is, my puppy agrees clearly. Once you start learning how magic, what I call magic, and how our spiritual gifts operate, you start learning a lot about yourself, because a lot of us have this naturally and don't have the words for it, nor do they have a community to talk about it and develop it.
Right.
So I'm trying to get through all the different ways in which I got here. And one of those ways is learning to acknowledge what parts of myself are me, that make me me.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't really ask that question until we're like over the hump of trying to figure that out. And then once we feel like we got it figured out, then we can get to know ourselves for real.
Right. So that's a really excellent point. Can we go back just a little bit to I know you mentioned going through numerous transformations and
Mm-hmm.
And what the reality is, low points that make you go, ask those questions. Is there one in particular that you can think of that was really,
Oh yeah.
even and led you to the spiritual work that you do?
I wouldn't say led me to the spiritual work that I did, because I think that the areas of research and the areas of study I chose to do led me there. But there is a moment that I can say that changed my perspective at how I was going to spend my time here, like
Okay.
on this planet. I had a tumor removed from one of my breasts, and I ended up with a post-operative complication. And I developed a staph infection that went into my lymph system, which is a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
And when they brought me into the emergency room by ambulance with like 106 fever, post what should have been a simple lumpectomy, I knew that things were very serious by the way that they were moving, the way that they were reacting. And then I got put into this ICU room. And I remember at one point, like my parents were outside of the door talking to the doctors, and my teenage children were standing there. And I remember like looking back and forth between the two of them thinking, this might be it. This might be it. And I was fairly okay with it, to be honest. I felt like I'd lived a great life. I looked at my children and thought, okay, they're far enough into their teenagehood that they'll be okay. Like they have a solid foundation. And I had worked really hard to keep my body healthy and strong, and had been through a lot. Like, I'm going through a lot of emotional upheavals in my life. And I really was kind of okay if that was the end. But what I did want to do is make sure I had the last word with my kids. So I looked at them and I start spouting off these final little pieces of advice of things I wanted them to know. I don't remember what I said. I just remember this feeling that these are the things I really want you to know. Like, you're going to remember this moment. If this is it, you're going to remember this moment. These are my parting words. Well, apparently doctors know that when a patient starts talking like that, you're going to go. And the thing is that when we decide to go, we have some sway in the ultimate outcome. So, their reaction to me trying to say goodbye was, okay. So it became a flurry of activity, and all the doctors came in, and then I went in for emergency surgery and had, all of these damaged tissues and stuff repaired. And then I woke up the next day and I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'm still here. And
Yay.
when I woke up, I remembered and I don't, if anybody's had surgery or been under, heavy general anesthesia, you don't really remember anything, but I have a memory. I remember a place that I visited. I'll call it in the astral plane, in the unseen worlds. I went to the edge of this, like, I can describe it like a cliff where I could see the other side. And there was a great like valley. If you think of it, something like the Grand Canyon, but not that far apart, because I could see the other side. I got to the edge of the cliff. I didn't go to the other side, but I got to the edge of the cliff and I knew what was on the other side. I knew that that was where I would transition to when I died. I just knew it. And again, I'm saying all this with the same feeling I had then, which is it wasn't stressful for me. I didn't, there was no like
No fear.
regret or remorse or fear. No, I just knew that that was the other side, but I was still over here. So maybe there was a part of me that knew I was going to stay because I stayed on that side of the cliff. But when I woke up that next day, I realized that, wow, like every day now is icing on the cake. Truly. Like I feel like I live like that still today. I live with this level of gratitude for the days and times that I have, and curiosity. It increased my curiosity for that same question, right? Have I lived to the fullest, or is this all there is? Like, that same question came up. Well, shortly after that, I got a divorce, intentionally got a divorce, ended a relationship amicably. I changed my life and I put my sights on purpose. Like, what does purpose look like? I knew I was going to eventually move when my kids were done with school, which I since have. And I live on a tiny little island out in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. And, I knew that I was going to pursue different things that really lit me up. So that moment changed how the type of seeker I was. I went from seeking the right thing, the right house, the right job, the right amount of money, the right partner, the right idea of what it means to be happy, and instead started actually just seeking what made me happy. That was the shift. And then
Wow.
it was before that and all along there that I was doing a lot of self-development, self-help work, spiritual work. And that led me to the introduction of my first concept of what it meant to be a witch.
So interesting. And wow. I mean, I don't know. The whole, what do they call it? When you almost die and you have that vision, that seems kind of like what you
I
described.
mean, it doesn't fit the category of a near death
But thank
experience.
you. That
Yeah, because I don't feel like I don't feel I mean maybe I did. It doesn't fit the definition of what that would be. I know I can still see it. Like I can
Mhm.
in my mind's eye I can still see
Wow.
that picture. And I knew the moment I woke up that I was different. I knew that I
Hmm.
was different, and I don't I don't think it requires that for us to recognize that we're different, because since then, I feel like I still have that all the time, still today. So a couple of days ago, I came back from a big conference in Portland, of spiritual and witchcraft practitioners. We came together and I did this big presentation. I feel like I changed then too. I feel
Yeah.
like it was a threshold. We cross these thresholds all the
Hmm.
time. And so we don't have to get to the end to ask that
Hmm.
question, is this all there is? What we do need to do though is put action behind choosing to explore what that means.
Right. Hey, lady. Just wanted to take a moment and interrupt right now in the middle of the show to ask you to subscribe. Yes, press that button right now. This show is all about you, the midlife woman. Let's do this thing together, so join us. Subscribe now. I love how you kind of talk about just you keep on learning and keep on evolving, kind of like a snowball going down a hill, and you just keep collecting more of you
Mm-hmm.
the whole
100%.
way, the whole way.
100%.
And it brought you to this cool and interesting passion of is Wiccan the right way to say it? Is that different?
No, Wiccan is a type of witchcraft. It's like
Okay.
own religion within
Okay.
witchcraft sector. So I'm not Wiccan.
Okay.
Most people might think that witches are Wiccan, but most of the witches that I work with are not. In the mystery school that I teach, we don't teach Wiccan principles. We teach more general principles, lineage that I was initiated into, which are several of them. But I teach it in a more what I consider to be a broader way. No gatekeeping. I mean, if you come into mystery school and walk an initiate path, like the high priest or the high priestess path, I'm going to give you the teachings the way that I learned them, and I'm going to
Mhm.
expect you to learn them this way and do them this way while you're with me, and then they're yours, right?
Well,
Then you
I
can
love it.
choose.
I
Yeah.
love it. I So let's go down that path and educate people like me who are intrigued, interested, a little going, a little like, whoa, I don't know. We're curious, but with a little bit
Yeah.
of hesitation because you're right. The word. I have a very good friend who describes herself as a witch, and at first I was
Mm.
like, oh, okay, and I just kind of let it go because I love her, and it makes no difference, right? But I don't really understand it.
Hmm. Well, where would you like me to start? What's the best way to? I mean, because I think when I think of talking about witchcraft with people that don't necessarily know what that means, to me it's just a person who understands and is in touch with all things, and
Mhm.
knows that they have the power to change energy to create things on their terms. If we keep
Right.
it just that simple without any words, and
Sure.
if it's just someone who's totally, if you think of the one of the acronyms people like to say is woman in total control of herself.
Well, that's awesome. So it's not a matter of dark versus light
Well,
or
it
anything
can
like
be. I
that.
mean,
Okay.
isn't that every human though? Isn't that
Well, yeah,
everything on the
sure.
planet right now? People, here's a funny. I'll tell you something funny. People ask me. One of the most commonly asked questions I get is if I'm a good witch or a bad witch.
Okay.
People might say light or dark, and I try to let them know that that was actually established on a racist basis. So I'll say good versus bad. My
Mm-hmm.
answer to that question is depends on how you define good versus bad. So I'll ask you this question: if I was to create a spell that would protect a young teenage girl from the inappropriate advances from her father, would you consider that to be good or bad magic?
I would say good.
Right. but it's baneful magic. It's the left-hand path. It's what would be actually classified in hexing, right? I creep, and I have done work like that in what I consider to be justice or protection. So good versus bad is a heart. It's an individual line of values, and that's the thing with all things in the world. And it's the same in witchcraft. I mean, maybe people have more power; they understand how to wield power differently. But we see that in government. We see that in school systems. We see the same thing everywhere. When people have access to power, is it misused? Yes. And is good versus bad based upon our own individual values. So for me, the way that I teach people to think of witchcraft is you get to control, you're steering the ship. You get to choose, if you want to learn more about how plant allies can support you, they will be a magical practice for you to go down, and they will infuse and change every aspect of your life. If you want to choose how to work with different types of energetics, such as stones or energetic movement in the body, you will find an entirely magical way of existing with that. If you want to learn how to call forth the ability to communicate with spirits, you will find a whole magical path available to you. So there are many ways to get there. And in my series of books, Sacred Magic of the North, East, South, and West, I go deep into each of those areas. So the North is our body. The North is the earth. We dream differently when we're in the north of our soul. The South is fire. I'm showing up here in this interview with a lot of Pitta energy, which is a lot of fire energy. And we move through this spiral path in life, like it or not. I teach it as, well, when you know where you are, then you know if you want to change. Is that a good place to start? I know there's so many. I can feel the questions.
It is. Yeah. Is it okay? Are you ready?
Yes. And I also pulled up a ritual that I would like to read to you. So when people have questions about what does it mean to be a high priestess specifically,
okay,
what we teach are body movements with words that are ancient. And it creates, you create a circle, you call forth the elemental gods, you honor beauty in all things, you do a ritual washing with holy water, and you learn how to create the energy around your space. And when you first step into this path, you learn how to do these rituals every single day. Most people do these rituals every single day the rest of their life. When you start, it might take 15 minutes. By the time you know them all by heart, because they're all on paper, of course, when you memorize them, you're spending 10 minutes a day speaking these ancient words with mudras, body movement, and breath. And it's the most magical thing that I teach. Their words don't properly even describe what it's like, which is why I would like to read one of them for you.
Right. Well, whenever you feel that that's appropriate, go for it.
I'm happy to. Now's probably a good time. Let me open that up.
Let's do it.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you, Brenda, and everyone listening, if you can just take a moment to take a couple of deep breaths. And if you're in a place where you can close your eyes while you're listening, please do so. And just feel these words coming through your body. All the power that ever was or will be is here now. I am the center of expression for the primal will to good, which eternally creates and sustains the universe. Through me, its unfailing wisdom takes form in thought and word. Filled with the understanding of its perfect law, I am being guided moment by moment along the path of liberation. From the exhaustless riches of its limitless substance, I draw all things needful, both spiritual and material. I recognize the manifestation of the undeviating justice in all circumstances in my life. In all things, great and small, I see the beauty of the divine expression. Living from that which will be supported by its unfailing wisdom and understanding, mine is the victorious life. I look forward with confidence to the perfect realization of the eternal splendor of the limitless light. In thought and word and deed, I rest my life from day to day upon the sure foundation of eternal being. The kingdom of spirit is embodied in my flesh.
Mm,
How did that feel?
wow. Incredible. I mean, limitless life.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It does feel good.
So that gives you a little experiential understanding.
Mhm. Thank you. And for those of us who feel like we're a little too left brain and really like, I kind of describe myself as a woo-woo wannabe. And I'm not saying what you're doing is woo-woo at all, because I
Yeah,
totally am a
it's
believer.
totally fine.
I'm
Yeah.
totally a believer. I just kind of say that as a funny thing. But wow, I mean, I have done little practices to try to get in touch with my spirit guides and all that stuff. And I'm limited or no success, to say. Is there hope for us?
Yes. Yes. Here's the thing. We have been conditioned so strongly against being able to see beyond the veil that those layers for some of us are very thick, right? I mean, how many of your years of your life have you been conditioned to just, chase the hamster wheel and do the things you're doing? I mean, we weren't taught in school to meditate. We weren't taught in school to talk to our spirit guides. We weren't taught how to honor our ancestors in the lands we reside on, which will then bless you with 1,000 blessings a day. We weren't taught how to do that. We were taught the opposite of that. And
Mhm.
I believe that's because when we are in touch with those things, we are so much more powerful, which means we're not as controllable. And so
Mhm.
you have to just know that every one of those layers of conditioning are layers you have to get through in order to see beyond what's seen. And
Mhm.
so a spirit guide practice, for example, it might take some time. I
Mhm.
teach people 3 different 21-day practices on communing with your spirit guides, 3 different periods of 21 days in a row before you should expect anything to really change, because you have to change first. They're there, but you can't hear them. If you think of it like a radio frequency, you're on channel 99, they're on channel 812. So in
Mm.
order to get to channel 812, it takes a little bit of practice. um, it's possible for anyone.
So we should give ourselves a break a little bit
Yeah,
and
keep
not
trying. Yeah. And
and
listen, I know that there are synchronicities that have happened in your life that you cannot deny. Those are like
Mhm.
breadcrumbs. You're the spirits that are with you. They're like, hey, knock, knock, knock. I see it less as universal language happening as opposed to communication happening from the other side of
Mhm.
the veil. It's just a
Mhm.
matter of, learning how to part that curtain.
Okay. Awesome. Wow. Well, what else do you want to share for the midlife women out there that are going through their ups and downs, asking the question,
Yeah.
and what can they do today or this week
Yeah.
that would actually give them a little bit of momentum in the
Yeah.
direction of what they really want?
Well, my first piece of advice would be to embrace a type of meditation or contemplation practice, because we need to quiet the noise of the world a little bit more now than we've ever needed to. And if we're feeling that sort of midlife sludgery, lack of purpose, we need to cut the noise out a little more than we ever have needed to be able to listen to ourselves a little bit more. And following this, whether it's meditation or just sitting in the quiet contemplation, start writing out things that interest you. Just start a list. And it doesn't have to be a formal journal practice, because some people get tied up on it having to be perfect. No, look at my little note right now. It's on the back of a postcard, my notes for us today. Like I'm writing on the back of a postcard, and I'll just keep this. Just jot down some notes of things that interest you. And when you find a couple of things that interest you, go try them. Learn
Mhm.
about them, like learn something new, try something new, step a little bit outside of your comfort zone to explore what reinvention means. That maybe that's the top of the page. If you just ask the question, what does reinvention mean? Start there, write it out. Well, for me right now, today, it means being able to write a book, get ready to release a book, hold the capacity that 3 more are coming out. Being able to hold all of these different things at the same time. Like reinvention for me now means expanding my capacity to
Mhm.
hold bigness.
Mm,
And so if you just ask yourself, because everyone's answer to what does reinvention mean, it might just mean getting out of your pajamas a little bit more often. It might just mean, exercising a little more. It might mean changing your job. It might mean finding new people to bring into your life and your community. You
mhm,
might not even feel like you have that, any of those possibilities, but that's where you start. And that is magic. Just so you know, what I'm advising you to do is when you sit in that space of contemplation or meditation and you ask a question, you are going to receive answers more than just the time that you're writing. It's going to come throughout your day. It's going to come in the
mm.
songs that appear on the radio. It's going to come in the form of you and I appearing on your podcast list and being like, who's that crazy chick that's a witch that's telling me to write reinvention down? Yes, that's how it will happen.
Okay. Yes, I love all that. How do I reinvent myself? What does that mean for me? Let's talk to the woman out there who, loves the idea of meditating, but her thoughts are thinking her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I actually get this question a lot. There are many different ways to meditate. I say keep trying. If you need to find a guided meditation online, there are so many to choose from now. There is going to be one that you'll find that will work for you, but there actually is no way around it. Really, if the practice of learning to quiet your mind, if that's what reinvention for you looks like now, go all in on it. Try all the practices. Listen to the binaural beats. Listen to different sounds. Try different. Maybe that becomes your whole purpose, is to learn how to quiet your mind. It is possible. There is nobody that can't get there eventually. You just haven't learned how. Right,
Mhm,
we're so overstimulated, and if you live in a
mhm,
house where there's lots of activity or other people coming and going or pets or busyness at work, you might need to go in your car and go drive around the corner to a park 3 times a week, at dusk, and roll up the windows and turn the air conditioning on and do it there. I mean,
mhm.
there's always a way to keep trying.
Right.
I believe that it's possible. I don't give up. I don't give up when people say they can't overcome their thoughts. I just think that their thoughts haven't had enough space to move up until now. They need a space to move. So maybe you journal out everything on your list before you even meditate. Like for me, my to-do list has to be out of my mind and on paper before I can settle.
That
I
makes
just,
sense.
especially if I
Yeah.
need stuff at the grocery store or I have a report or something due later, I have to get it all out of my brain first or my mind. It just loops it because it doesn't want to forget it.
That's a
Get
great tip.
Yeah, like
Yes.
dump it out. And most people end up with grocery lists or to-do lists on these initial dumpings. Then try to meditate. If it doesn't work and you find your thoughts racing, pause, write it out, write it out, write it out. And if you do this enough days in a row, enough times, you're going to get empty. You're going to empty.
Love it. It's a practice.
It's a practice. Yes.
It's, I love it. Oh, thank you. That's just great. So Tahverlee, how do we find you and your books and your magic and all the wonderful things you're doing?
Thank you for asking. I think the best way to reach me is if you just type my first name in any social platform, you can find me. It's, Tahverlee, Tahverlee, or go to tahverlee.com is all my books. Moon Temple School is all the classes, and they kind of both link back to each other. So if you find me anywhere with my first name, you'll be able to navigate to my site and my books. And yeah, and thank you, Brenda. Thank you very much for giving me the chance to talk about something that might feel kind of far out there, but really is actually all of us.
Ah, yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. That's wonderful. So my final question for you, Tahverlee, is how do you tribe?
Well, I pretty much tribe with more spirits than I do humans at this stage in my life. Tribe, it's important.
Yeah.
I I think that I am very intentional about creating relationships and communities. And I invite people to do the same. Find your people and know that as you reinvent yourself, regardless of what stage of life you're in, we're constantly changing. Our tribes change, our needs change. Sometimes we grow and the people we've always known are not growing. It doesn't mean we have to cut them off and burn it down. We can love people from afar, but if you open your heart and you even open the idea to creating connections that will serve you at this stage of your life, you'll be surprised at who says hello in the middle of a clothing store or a drugstore, or who'll pass you in a supermarket and say, hey, where'd you get that chocolate milk? And next thing you know, you have a conversation about the color of your sweaters. And That's how it works. So that's how I find my tribe. And really my tribe right now is the spirits that I walk with, both for my creative projects and on the lands that I live in.
I love it. I want to add to my spiritual tribe. I definitely do. And
Yeah.
I just have to say how grateful I am to you. We were connected by a mutual friend months ago, and you have been a really great resource and help and mentor for me personally. So I'm very
Mm,
grateful, and I don't take it lightly. I think you're very giving and open with what you know, and you're just willing to share it. And I just can't tell you how much that means to me. So thank you, and thank you for being here
mm,
and sharing so openly and honestly with the world who will tap into the Find Your Lady Tribe podcast, and just sharing something a little different maybe for some of the ladies who tap
yeah.
in. So I really appreciate it. So thank you. And to our listeners, thank you so much for showing up, being here, and being a part of Find Your Lady Tribe. You are my people. So with that, when three or more gather, we are tribe. Thank you for spending this time with your Lady Tribe. I always say that when three or more gather, we are tribe. And today, with my guests, myself, and you listening in, that circle is complete. I hope this story reminded you that your purpose is worth the pursuit. If this episode stirred something in you, please take a moment to subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Your engagement helps other sisters find their way to our circle. If you're ready to take the next step in your own transformation, I invite you to join our gathering place, the Save the World Sisterhood Facebook group. It's where we unmask, connect, and cheer each other on as we ignite our lives together. Until next time, I'm Brenda Ridgely. Save the world, sister.